Pop Culture Pastor.
Cody, you fetid Moppet. I laughed so hard when he said that. First of all,
I don't even know what that means.
we had to, when we were watching the episode, my wife and I, she was like, "What did he just say?" And I was like, "I think he said fetid Moppet." We had to like go back and turn the subtitles on to make sure that's what he said. And yeah. Anyways, I don't know what it is, but you're that. No, I actually looked it up. I know what it is, but we'll talk about it at the proper time.
Okay.
Because we have order on this podcast.
We try to.
Yeah, this is Pop Culture Pastor watch-alongs. And basically what this is it's off the side of our main pod, and we watch along with a streaming show that's dropping weekly.
That we do.
And yeah, and then we talk about it. And right now we're talking about the Ben Stiller produced, what's his name from Parks and Rec starring show. I know his name. I can't remember it right now. Adam Scott. Yeah. Adam Scott starring show. Although then I feel like I'm dissing John Turturro or Patricia Arquette, Christopher Walken, or any number of people. All the actors are good.
Zach Cherry.
Nobody puts Zach in the corner.
Yes.
He was great this episode, by the way.
Oh, this was a Zach Cherry breakout episode.
Yeah, he got to show some skills here. This is season 2, episode 2 of Severance, and man, it just is. We're on the gas all at the beginning here. I'm loving it. But before we get into the recap, we always start off with Cody. What the lumen?
What the lumen?
What made you go what the in this episode?
Honestly, it's one character and how her outie and her innie are behaving. Do you have a guess to what character that is?
I think that would be Helena/Helly.
It would be Helly.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about as it pertains to Helly/Helena. We got a lot of questions. I don't know that there's. I mean, I'm sure there's a theory. We could come up with a theory, but I don't think we've seen anything definitively yet that would tell us. But we got some clues that we'll talk about when we get there. So we're just going to start right in. This episode happens congruently alongside episode 1, whereas episode 1 focuses on the Innies. Episode 2 is all about the Outies.
And I'm here for some Outies.
Yeah, I mean, the Outies need game too. We need to talk about them. But yeah, so it literally runs parallel because the events of episode 1 are running parallel to this, and this is what is happening in the outside world when we saw the Innies last week. So we join just after Innie Mark has just shouted she's alive to a party at his sister's house, clutching a picture of him and his deceased wife.
Potentially.
I figured I got to add the question mark in there because that's the big thing now. Although we've seen her. I'm not sure what she is.
Outie saw her dead.
Yeah. Especially when we get into that where his memory is he identified her body.
And evidently had to tell everyone.
The overtime contingency has been stopped, and a confused Outie Mark is back around a just as befuddled dinner crowd, or party crowd for Rickon's book reading.
Yes.
Rickon's glorious centering of everything on himself was super hilarious this episode. Like everyone else is freaking out about what just happened. Mostly his wife, Mark's sister. And he's like, do you think I should start over and read from the first one? I think I should probably do that. Like nobody, he's like totally missing the boat because he's so self-absorbed, but hilarious.
I loved it, especially a little bit later when he's like, your innie really appreciated my book and its insight.
I think you meant your worky.
Yeah, your worky, yes.
Michael Chernus, who plays Rickon, is fantastic in this episode and really steals some scenes when really he doesn't get a whole lot to do except be kind of a punchline, a self-absorbed punchline. But he was fantastic. Stole some scenes, which is why I kind of talked to him about him out of order.
Yes.
Because we're not really going to talk about him that much. But Mark's sister, Devin, kind of leaps into caretaker mode, hugs Mark while he's speaking, so this is you again.
Yes.
And again, Adam Scott, what's great about this series so far is you got like some of these actors who are known, we talked about this, who have the comedic chops. But the serious work they're doing here, the befuddled look on Mark's face, Adam Scott, the actor, played that so well, and you really feel these beats. But Devin says, this is you again. Then to confirm it, she asks Mark what her name is. Now he jokingly says Persephone, to which she says, spell that, because she returns the joke.
Yes.
However, Cody, there are no accidents in this story. And when you have a show that creates so many theories, and by the way, just happens to have a lot of Hades hell imagery, which is quite heavy in this episode, we got to talk about Persephone. Now, Persephone in Greek mythology is the daughter of Demeter, whom Hades, the god of the underworld, falls in love with and takes as his bride. This obviously is hurtful to Demeter, who is the goddess of the harvest. And so Hades lets Persephone up out of the underworld to live with her mother during spring and summer. Now, these myths were meant to explain the seasons to the ancient Greeks. But between this mention, between the creepy elevator doors with their bright red down signal, and what seems like perpetual winter in the Outie world,
yes,
this all seems kind of relevant. Cody, were you having these thoughts?
I mean, as soon as he said that, I'm like, hey, I know a little bit about this myth. And then, like, there's been moments that I'm like, this is at least existential dread.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, the imagery and just the order of how things are.
Yeah. I mean, it's also strange. I don't know how any of the hell imagery works into this plot, because up till now, I've been pretty sure the plot of this is like kind of retro sci-fi-ish genetics. This is clearly a cult. The Egans clearly are a cult. Lumon, clearly a cult. They're clearly messing around with what I would guess would be how to reincarnate their glorious leader, Kier. Like, that's what I assume we're messing with. But all of that fits into this, like, kind of retro sci-fi horror type thing. And I don't know how the hell imagery is fitting in right now, but it sure is interesting.
It is. Also, in a bit of a side tangent, Adam Scott says that Severance is a kind of role he dreamed about as a kid. From the very first time I read a script, I felt like it was everything I'd ever wanted to do acting-wise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm here for this. People getting to live their dreams.
Well, I've watched more interviews with this than any watch-along we've done. It certainly seems like he's having a lot of fun. Him and Ben Stiller. I mean, Ben Stiller is just the producer. He's not the director. But he seems more involved in, like, the pounding the drum for this show than a lot of producers would be.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it's self-serving. It seems like he's just really proud of it and really that he takes a lot of joy in the story they're telling. Like, he's really into it.
I'm really into it.
I'm really into it too. It's just it's a fantastic show, and we really love shows that make you think and you try to figure out what's going on. Obviously, that's our favorite. Let's move on to Helena, because we go back to Lumon, that is apparently in full damage control mode. Now, we see Helena, or Outie Helly,
Yep.
as we can call her, rubbing her neck, probably some PTSD from her Innies Season 1 self-deletion attempt.
Mm-hmm.
And enter a new guy, Mr. Drummond, Egan security guard-ish kind of guy. Definitely not the guy from Different Strokes.
Yeah.
I annoyingly started singing the song as soon as they said his name. It's like, and the world don't move to the beat of just one like, and my wife was like, would you stop, please?
Yeah.
But this is what living with me is like. You would think that I'm playing a character in my podcast alter ego. No, this is just me. And any sort of thing that sparks in my brain, that sparks another pop culture memory, I will immediately act upon.
I do the same thing, and my wife does not appreciate it.
We have similar lives, which is why we're here.
Yes.
Because then we can do it around each other, and we think it's hilarious. But yeah, so security guard, he's a huge guy. And also, Helena's dad joins them. Is it Jame or Jamie? It's spelled Jame.
Jaime.
It's not definitely not Jaime. Jame Egan, and Papa Egan comes in. He's looking at his daughter like she's an imposter. Like the acting done with just the facial expressions in this show is so deep. I watched this like 5-6 times. I kept rewinding because I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to say. But he's looking at her like she's an imposter. That was what I came up with. Then calls her the Fetid Moppet. Now, Fetid, I kind of knew that word. It means stinky.
Oh.
Smelly.
That's rude.
And Moppet is like kind of an old-timey Old English endearment for a child, according to Merriam-Webster. You know, like in Dickens, they would have said, "Oh, you amusing little Moppet."
I feel they used it in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, exactly. Fetid is usually reserved for smells of something that is decomposing or has gone bad. So in this way, here's what I think we're hearing. I think coupled with the suspicious way he's looking at her, that we can surmise that he's inferring that he's worrying that any Helly is maybe polluting Outie Helena. And when she calls him father, he has this like real emotionally interesting reaction to that, where it appears like he's almost overcome with emotion, and he backs off because he seems aggressive at first, and she says, "Father," and looks at him, never moves her eyes away from eye contact. And then he sort of backs away like he's almost overcome with emotion. So, Cody, do you have anything? What do you think of that interaction?
At first, I'm like, is he trying to examine if it's the innie or the outie? And then I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Because he should know or had been briefed that, oh, she's back to being herself.
Yeah.
Or her outie self. I also wondered, is she and / he like really real? Like, is there something that's like
expound? Like, you mean what are they, genetic creations?
Are
they
they
clones?
genetic creations, or like kind of Westworld robots that have been planted with human memories?
Yeah, animatronic
Yep.
Egans. I don't know, man. It's so weird. And right now we don't have many answers, which makes me think the rewatchability of this show is going to be off the charts. Because when we finally know what's happening, I feel like you're going to be able to go back and watch this show in like a completely different way, where you're going to pick up all the things that you had no idea were things.
Unless this is a modernization of the Greek myth.
I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot of, the Persephone line. That's not just a throwaway, and it's not just a joke. It's not like ha ha ha, I called her Persephone a lot when we were kids. Nobody does that. That's not a name you throw around.
Definitely not Mark S. Mark W? Maybe. He's a wild card.
But the hell imagery really throws me. And honestly, there's a creepy factor of just what we're meant to believe is the quote-unquote outside world, which I'm not so sure it is.
Like, what if Mark S. died and like he has to kind of go through reliving seeing his wife and yet not knowing it's his wife, and like having this just all come about and then relive it and go back and just
the whole story
pain and torture.
Yeah, the whole story of Persephone is this idea that you live with one foot in the underworld, one foot in the real world. And so like I feel like that's probably why they made the reference, why there's so much hell imagery, but we will eventually find out, I guess. This scene ends with the Lumon team discussing the need to find out how much damage has been done out in the Outie world. When Milchick asks, this is really interesting too, when Milchick asks if he's to fire them, Helena says, "Let Kier guide your hand." This is wild stuff.
I loved that line.
Pentecostal cultists.
Yes. Which Milchick clearly is not severed. He just might not be fully connected to what's going on above him.
Yeah. Well, clearly he's a patsy, right?
Yeah.
Milchick has no idea what's really going on. I would place my house on that. We go to Helena then, because the scene then shifts as Helena walks down a long hallway past security checkpoints to a very large boardroom where Miss Cobell is already seated. But the really interesting thing here is they're clearly painting different pictures of the three people on the team and Helena. Mm-hmm. Because when we see the other three, it's always up, down in the elevator. It's vertical. And then yet they make a big deal. This is a big, long, drawn-out thing as she's walking sideways into this portion of the building that clearly only the highest of the high go. So she walks down this way. There's a security checkpoint. Then she walks into this very large boardroom. Miss Cobell is already there. And Helena, I noticed, now acting very much in charge.
Yes.
Thanks Miss Cobell for her service and offers her a return to Lumon, to which she replies, "An apology is warranted."
I'm like, this is so Patricia Arquette.
Who are these people? Why do they talk like this? Oh, she's not done. First of all, Mr. Drummond's side eye when she says that, so stinking funny, man. Again, I do not know how a show that is literally playing with hell imagery and is as dark as this is makes me laugh so many times an episode. But that side eye by Mr. Drummond was great. Helena apologizes with a sort of vague sincerity. She's like, "My father apologizes. The board apologizes." She makes it personal. She says, "I apologize. She says, you helped me out. You saved my bacon," in so many words. And then I can't tell if these characters are playing it straight or if they're playing each other. Cause then she says, "I welcome your contrition." And then she's like, "I'm so glad." And I'm like, I have no idea whether they're playing this straight up or whether they're being sarcastic with each other. And I don't really care.
For me, I was like, I really think this is how Patricia Arquette would handle a situation like this.
I like to imagine this is how talks with her families go. Yeah. I appreciate your contrition, Cody. The conversation goes on. The good feels are short-lived because Helena offers Miss Cobell a promotion that Miss Cobell instantly recognizes as getting her out of the way, essentially.
Yep.
Helena says, "We promoted Mr. Milchick. I mean, what are they going to do with him? Immediately demote him again?" It's a solid point. But again, it's just a loophole that she's using, and she knows it. And she says, "You don't value me. You fear me." To which Helena says, "We fear no one." Cody, what did you make of all of this, specifically that part?
Well, I mean, she's not severed, theoretically. And
she's weird, though.
She is a little eccentric.
She hasn't been wrong. Why would they fear Miss Cobell?
She could be a whistleblower.
Yeah.
And
Just the standard sort of way.
at least surface-wise, unless she knows a lot more about what it is they're actually doing and that it is something horrific. But with the little information we have about what they're doing besides playing retro computer games.
Well, she does have the weird kind of cultish shrine.
Yes.
So, I mean, she maybe, and that kind of plays to my ideas of like, well, clearly they're messing around with some genetic stuff or something to try and bring back their glorious Kier.
Although I did appreciate Helly saying, we fear no one. And I'm like, that's some strong religious sentiment there. You're not supposed to fear. You go all in, baby. And she is.
Yeah, you could take it that way. I heard another guy, or I'd read a recap by someone where they said it was a corporate-y thing to say too. Like,
oh yeah,
it's very corporate for them to not fear anyone in the real world, right?
When you do go to lawsuits with major corporations, they try to scare you down before it ever goes to court, so then they don't have to pay out. Now, oftentimes they will settle if it's looking like this will be long drawn out and it would just be cheaper to settle. But they're trying to put fear back on you. But also, if we're going cult route, you don't fear.
Yeah. It could definitely go either way. I felt like whatever's going on, that we don't fear anyone, was definitely more of a supernaturally vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever the Egans really are, that's what is driving the non-fear. But it could be corporate. It could just be that they're just a big company and they're not afraid of it.
Well, clearly they're a big company, because where does Mark W. come from? I don't remember where he said that he had to...
Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
He had to break a lease in Grand Rapids. Well, the one guy came from Italy.
Yes.
Although the timey-wimey stuff, that was my Kier-spiracy last episode, that's still all very much all on the table. It is super weird. The cars, I haven't seen anything newer than like mid-90s vehicle-wise. There's a phone booth in this episode. We'll get to that. Mr. Milchick's firing spree. Now we're clearly placing ourselves parallel with the last episode. He visits Irv and Dylan, ending their employment with Lumon. And then he shows up to Mark's sister's place, where Mark is reassuring his sister that he was probably clearly referencing the baby that was indeed alive.
Yep, baby's still here.
Rickon, after he gets over himself, is sort of trying to back that up, but making sure everyone knows that the credit should go to his book. That has clearly influenced Worky Mark, who's not Marky Mark's cousin. That was a joke. The sister seems dubious. Rickon continues to hilariously talk about Mark's Worky and him being inspired by the profundity of his book.
Yes.
Milchick sits everyone down to have a discussion of what happened.
Nice helmet.
Magnificent helmet. Listen, that actor, again, is just doing work. Michael Chernus owns that scene when he is easily the least important character in that scene. The sister is very dubious. She is sitting there, she's just giving Milchick the evil eye the whole time. The sister brings up Cobell, and Milchick says she's severely unwell and the source of any Mark's problems. So he clearly lying. And then he says this, as if all the hell imagery wasn't enough. She will never descend to that floor again, nor bedevil you out here further.
That was an interesting choice of words.
Yeah. That was when I was sure of like, okay, what are we doing here? We are really playing around with the hell imagery. A few important things to note here. One, Milchick doesn't fire Mark.
Nope.
Which he clearly thought was the right course of action up until that point. Two, Mark does not disclose what any Mark said. he lies. He withholds information, even though he was very upset by his sister being dubious about what any Mark was talking about. Number 3, after Mark expresses doubt on returning to work, Milchick says that what his Innie did was unauthorized, but also brave. And then says, I'd hate to reward his courage with non-existence. Cody, the manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
But also really laying into something I figured someone from Lumon would not lean into, which is the dual life thing here.
I think knowing what Mark's motivations are, that it was a calculated risk that he was willing to take.
Yeah.
That he probably would not have done with the others. Yeah. But with Mark, it was risk it for the biscuit.
Yeah. It's interesting because clearly this whole story kind of mirrors real life hot button life, what is life issues. And we've talked about those before. There's a few of them. And so for someone for the company to really go with the life is life
yes
line seems dangerous, because that's kind of the flack that Lumon's getting is, hey, you're holding these humans in because you're creating basically another human consciousness, essentially. And then you're holding them prisoner, which is what Helly said when she got out. Yeah. Then we got some little vignettes in here. Helena weirdly watching videos of Mark's Innie and her Innie and appearing to have an emotional reaction to her Innie kissing Mark.
I think her outie might try to find his outie.
Anything's impossible at this point. We get Dylan interviewing for a new job at Great Doors, which is absolutely hilarious.
Loved this scene just because, like, the guy that's leading the interview is basically older Dylan.
Why does he look just like him? What kind of door would you be, Cody? That whole scene is so, well, first of all, funny, but again, in like this dark comedy sort of way.
Oh, yeah. Until he finds out Dylan was severed.
Yeah, and then he dismisses him pretty quickly. Dylan rightly says, hey, man, this is persecution, not, that's not the word I'm looking for.
Discrimination.
Discrimination. And he's right. But again, we're toying around with these like real world issues that are embedded in this world. But at that point, you feel really bad for Dylan. What do we think? Do you think these characters have something in common? I'm kind of, how are they all so depressed? Do we think they all lost somebody and we just don't know it about Dylan and Irv yet? Because Outie Dylan is a marked different from any Dylan.
Uh-huh.
And the same with Irv. Like Dylan, the way he treats his wife on the phone, that was rough. That was hard to hear.
Yeah. Although he's like, I'll get wipes.
Yeah, but he knows they don't need him. He just doesn't want to go home. And the wife, the reason I wonder if something has happened to him, if he's lost someone, because the wife is over the top understanding.
Yes.
Even the way he's treating her, she's like, okay, hun.
So with Irv, I wonder, because when you first see his paintings, you're like, oh, it's about like the work elevator, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's something we have no idea what that is. That could be, if we did theories on that, it could just go anywhere. But yeah, the paintings are weird. Mark still isn't sure whether he's going to return to Lumon. He has breakfast with his sister. Sis ain't letting it go. She begins to push a little bit. Mark gets mad and leaves because she's clearly thinking, hey, what if this was about your wife? But the big reveal there is that Mr. Drummond was there.
Yes.
That he was listening, conceivably hearing their conversation, because he did get loud because he got upset.
I loved this back and forth because clearly she cared about her sister-in-law, cares a lot about her brother, and is trying to get him to realize, like, if there is a chance that she's alive, this not only affects you, affects me, affects everyone. And then Mark goes in on, I had to identify the body. I had to tell her students that she was dead. Yeah. Did you have to do that? Nope.
Well, and then he, in a parallel with Dylan, with the way he said some insensitive things to his wife, he says something pretty insensitive to his sister. Like if Rickon was burned and you had to, like just saying, like it was out of line, probably. But again, there's this idea. This is why I think they're trying to show us that these guys are all united in some sort of tragedy.
Yeah. So there's a scene later on, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, so I won't jump too far ahead. But it brought up a lot more questions.
Yeah. Irv exits his apartment to use a payphone to tell someone his, quote, Innie got the message. And we see, first of all, that he looks at the note with Bert's address on it. And so Irv maybe knows more. Outie Irv maybe knows more than we think he does. And the really interesting thing, of course, that just made me jump back was he's being watched by Bert. What does Bert know? Was Bert the one he was calling?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that was mind-blowing. I didn't... do you have any thoughts about that? Were you surprised? I was kind of shocked.
I was befuddled.
Yeah, there's lots of befuddling things right now. Milchick brings Mark a bribery pineapple. Goes hard on the idea that any Mark is happy and that it will eventually bring him solace, which is really smart because there's some truth to that. Listen, this would probably be more of your territory, but the idea that there's some part of his consciousness that would be liberated and be happy would seem like there's a lot of science out there that says that would be good for your overall health if you're happy, not sad, and physical health as well. So that was very interesting to me. I did love the bribery pineapple. What is it with the pineapple? Last week in the claymation video, the stop motion video, they promised more bobbing for pineapple parties.
Yes.
Is there a point to that? I don't know.
So, like, random thought, but then I had nothing that I could connect it to is, like, pineapples, besides maybe being the official fruit for pirates, is like for swingers. That's like a symbol for swingers.
What?
Is pineapples.
How do you know that?
If you work with a bunch of young people, you hear random things.
I have never heard this in my life. Does that make me old?
Especially if the pineapple's upside down.
Oh, wow. Okay. I might have to... should I go down that rabbit hole?
Don't do it.
Okay. I won't.
But then I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, there's no one clearly doing that except for, I guess, technically, your Innie could be kind of doing that, and you don't even know.
Yeah. Then it all starts really meshing with last week's episode. We see Mark returning to work. We see the false team, but more so we see that Mark starts getting into the days, like where they show the vignette of him and the security guard, Judd, saying kind of the same thing over and over again. And then we get the place where they meet kind of at the end. The band's back together. And we get this really cool shot of everyone returning to work at Lumon. And here's what we see with all three, Cody. 1, the metal detector check. They all go through the metal detector check individually. Yeah. None of them are seen together. 2, the clock on the wall. 1 minute after the last with the next one. And then 3, getting on the elevator with the down light on, except for Helena, who we see get the metal detection, but we don't see the clock or the elevator light, which is super intriguing to me, Cody.
Is she really severed?
Is she really severed? It brings up a lot of questions. What's going on? Is she pretending? Obviously, that would go with kind of some things we saw last week and wondered. And this is where we get into something very special every episode. It's a Kier-spiracy!
It is a Kier-spiracy. What is your Kier-spiracy?
Oh, it's not my Kier-spiracy.
Oh.
This Kier-spiracy comes from listener Lauren in Texas.
Hi, listener Lauren.
Listener Lauren is very into this show. She also likes shows where you can theorize. And she says that she got this Kier-spiracy actually in the first episode with Helly/Helena. She said she was wearing a Save the Gorillas shirt in her apartment. Do you remember that line?
Yes.
Seems like a throwaway line, although I think what we're learning is there are no throwaway lines. Her question: how would her innie know of a reference to an actual hot button issue in the Outie world? I don't think she would. I think it's a good point.
So the hesitancy I have is just the way season 1 ended.
Yeah.
Although maybe can you de-sever?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Because if you de-sever and it is strictly, she now is kind of a spy that is infiltrating this group and knowing what got leaked out, what didn't get leaked out, to report to the board, then I guess she's protecting Lumon.
Yeah, there's really only two options when it comes to her lying to the rest of the team. Either one, she's embarrassed that her Outie is a part of the Egan family.
Mm-hmm.
Or two, she's not Helly, she's Helena. And she's just covering. So one of those has got to be it. I think it's a solid listener Kier-spiracy. Because I think we kind of mentioned that. We were thinking that last week, although we didn't talk a lot about it. As far as my Kier-spiracies, they seem to all still be centered around time. We never, ever see multiple of them in the outside world, in the Outie world together. We just don't see it. The weird surroundings. I mean, I don't know. It's all weird. But we cut to Mark S. returning home to see Miss Cobell moving out. Mark comes out, guns blazing. I trusted you. I ate your gross cookies.
Which that would be hurtful.
Not as hurtful as her getting. She's kind of just as upset. She says, "You're so easy to sway." After she surmises that they have talked him back into working.
Let me guess. They gave you a pineapple.
Yeah. He jumps in front of her car. Do you know something about Gemma? So now we are to understand that Outie Mark may be fully in on the whole wife storyline. Then something very weird happens. They sit in silence for a good, 5 to 8 seconds? Then she freaks. She gets mad. She screams. She pounds the steering wheel and drives off like a race car driver. Cody, what was that about?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm just trying to figure out, what is the motivation for her anger here? Is she feeling sympathy for Mark and Outie Mark? Is she upset that Outie Mark is going down this road and that's a huge problem for Lumon? I don't know. That was wild.
So this scene, and also when they're trying to give her a sideways promotion to get her out of the way, made me ask, why is Mark so important?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the only one that doesn't get fired. She had some interesting questions kind of around him during the weird sideways promotion thing. And there's a reason that she moved next door to him, followed him all around, and baked gross cookies for him. Like, why is this all happening? One of my initial thoughts was maybe she caused the accident that Gemma may have or may not have died in. Did she found this wing all by herself and Mark was patient number one? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how all this plays into the Persephone thing. Because what I forgot to mention, we didn't talk about, with the Greek myth and explaining the seasons. We haven't really talked about this, but it's perpetual winter out in Outie world.
Yes.
It's been winter now for pretty much every episode. So what is happening in that Outie world? And we've kind of been just, you slap a label on it, says, well, that's the real world. But is it? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that all of this isn't just happening somewhere off the grid.
They're in a snow globe.
Yeah. Is this related to the show From? Oh, man. So, yeah, the episode ends on just kind of that weird interaction.
It was a very visceral scream.
It was. And it's just like, it makes you want to get to the bottom of like, okay, she is one of the more intriguing characters on the entire show.
And where's she going to go?
I mean, clearly she's been transferred. I don't know. Maybe to a different facility. I don't know, wherever they're going to home base her made-up department they put her in.
It does not appear that the Outies got to have their parade, though.
No. What's really clear, I'm glad you brought that up because I might have forgot to talk about that. It's clear they lied to them. Mm-hmm. There's nothing going on in Outie world that suggests there are reforms being called for. No, seems like business as usual. Nobody really knows.
Which, I mean, I think I would go that route if I was the business. Like, oh, you guys are actually heroes and you accomplished what you wanted.
Yeah.
Although they did not accomplish what they wanted.
No. It's time for the Changes Award. Which character goes through the most change in this episode?
I think I'll go with Mark S.
Yeah. That's who I went with too. Outie Mark.
Yeah.
Specifically Outie Mark. Because he goes from skeptic about to quit to, hey, maybe something weird is going on. He goes from, I'm going to say rude things to my sister when she's apparently believing there's something might be going on with my dead wife, to straight up asking Miss Cobell about his dead wife.
Oh, yeah.
So he goes through a lot in just this short episode. Cody, who's the winner of the episode?
Let me scroll here. It is Trammell Tillman, a.k.a. Milchick.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, like, he steps up and does so many things, which aspiring of Dylan was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's so much more kind to Irv.
Yes.
With Dylan, he's like, no, you're fired. There's no, like, he doesn't try to soften the blow with him at all, which I found interesting.
And clearly the ruining of the belt he didn't care about.
Yeah. First of all, Trammell Tillman, wonderful job. And his character is one the acting you might almost forget about because he seems like such a patsy, but he's doing fantastic work. Everyone on this show is just bringing it acting wise. It's such an impressive show from top to bottom. I'm going to say the team is my winner of the episode because Mark S. Outie Mark comes around That's why they all get hired back on.
And poor Dylan wasn't bringing home any money. He was just buying wipes.
Well, and in this way, they escape what is their awful life in Outie hell. Because they're all miserable.
I felt maybe the worst for Irv. Because, like, he was really willing to do, like, anything to come back.
Yeah, I mean, he was like Lumon's biggest fan. He knew all the lore. Who's the loser of the episode?
Oh, right now, it might be... I'm going to go with Devin because she got yelled at, and it was not justified.
No, and by the end of the episode, Outie Mark's clearly thinking she may have a point.
If I've learned anything from the first season and the second season, first 2 episodes, Devin might know a thing or two.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Miss Cobell. Harmony Cobell.
Well, I gave that to her last week. I couldn't do that twice.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. You pick whoever you want, man. That's a great thing about this watch-alongs. But I'm going with Miss Cobell because, Cody, is there a chance she might not be a bad guy in all this?
There's a chance, but I feel also that even if she's not a bad guy, her hands might be a little dirty.
Yeah, probably. How many phone booths out of 10 are we giving this episode?
I'll go 8.5.
Yeah. What did I give it last week? I think it was 8.5, right? I'm going to elevate this one a little bit. I think this is an 8.5 or 9. I just think the technical thing they did with this episode by running it parallel, just some impressive stuff. So just on a technical sense, I'm going to go ahead and that shot where they're all returning to work. That's good stuff. And I think they shot it in a way that gave us some clues that we're maybe don't even know are clues yet.
I'm not going to lie. If this all came out at once, I would have already finished the season thrice.
We're prolonging, delaying our gratification, Cody. That's a
we
good
are.
thing. It's a good thing.
It is.
I hope you're enjoying it as well and enjoying listening to these watch-alongs. Make sure and subscribe to the pod if you're not already so you don't miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening. And until next week, may Kier not guide you.